Hello, fifth grade. It's Mrs. Davis with your first remote lesson on analyzing your tree data. So remember, our goal here is to make sense of all those numbers that we recorded on our data sheets and all those photographs that we took with our iPads. And we had talked earlier about how there's two different ways that we're going to use pictures to help make sense of all that data we took in the fall. We are going to make graphs of our data, and we're going to make a talking plant or tree animation. This lesson, today's lesson, focuses on that first type of data analysis, making a graph of our tree data. There are 3 steps to making your graph, and just like before, we've done steps 1 and 2 for you. So we have already set up your data table and entered your data. If you haven't already, go to the Google Classroom assignment and click on the tree data link. That will open up this spreadsheet. You'll notice that on top is the original data table we used when we did our face-to-face lesson and made computer graphs. But underneath, you'll see something new, a second data table. You're using this bottom data table to make your graphs for today's homework assignment. And before you start looking at your data, be sure you go to the bottom and find your tree, right? There's a separate page for each tree. So if I was in group 2 and had observed the ash tree, I would need to click on number 2, ash at the bottom, before I started to look at the data table. Once you start to look at the data table, you might notice a couple of differences. First, you'll notice that we've combined the leaves from branch A and branch B into one column. So all of the leaves that we observed are in one column, both branches A and B, and same for all of the leaves that fell. The other difference is this column here. When scientists are trying to compare when things happen during the year, they don't use dates. Instead, they use something called the Julian day or the day of the year. So October 6, 2020 was the 280th day of the year. Once you have located your data table with your data already entered, you are ready for step 3, making your graph. Today's graph, we're going to make pencil and paper, unlike our first graph, which we made on the computer. So you will need to gather some supplies before you can start making your graph. You should have graph paper in your folder from school. You'll need a ruler, a regular pencil, and colored pencils would also be helpful if you have them. Once you have your supplies, take your graph paper and turn it sideways or horizontally. Take your ruler and neatly draw 2 lines. Your x-axis will go side to side. Your y-axis will go up and down. And notice they do meet in the corner. We're going to start with our y-axis, which is the one on the left that goes up and down. And we're going to number that axis from 0 to 12, with 0 at the bottom where it meets the x-axis and 12 up at the top. So 1 number per box on your graph paper or by each line on your graph paper. Once you've got your numbers there, you're going to label the axis. And this axis, these numbers, represent the number of leaves that were fallen from your tree. Next step is to set up your x-axis. That's the one on the bottom that goes side to side. We're going to label that axis with the Julian year, so the day of the year. And we'll start at 270 on the left side, again in the corner where it meets the y-axis. And we'll go all the way up to 330, but we won't have room to list every number between 270 and 330. So instead, we're going to count in increments of 5. So start at 270, skip counting by 5, 270, 275, 280, 285. You can see some erasure marks on my paper. That's why I always do my graphs, or the first draft of my graphs, in pencil. I tried to write the numbers going left to right, and I didn't have room. So I ended up turning my paper and doing them up and down so that they would fit better. Just like with our y-axis, once we've got the numbering done, we need to add the label. So these numbers represent the day of the year. Final and last step is to plot your data points. And this is the hardest part. This will take some time, and you're going to have to be really focused and very careful to be accurate with your graph. First, find the tab that has the spreadsheet with your data table in it. For now, we're going to skip this first row. That's going to be extra assignment if you get done early. So you're going to start with October 6th, 2020, Julian Day 280. And you're going to, on your graph paper, find Julian Day 280 on your x-axis. And once you find that, you'll have to go back to your data table and see how many leaves had fallen on that day. So on October 6th, day 280, 0 leaves had fallen from my tree. So I would place an X where 280 and 0 meet, right there. You're going to repeat that process for all of the data listed in the leaves fallen column. So you'll plot data points for October 6th, October 9th, October 20th, October 23rd, October 27th, November 17th, and November 20th. So your final graph will look something like this. Once you have finished graphing the leaves that fell from your tree, your next challenge is to make your own graph of how your tree's color changed. So you're going to try to apply what you've learned in the first graph to making a second graph. In this second graph, your x-axis will be the same. It will still be the Julian days or the day of the year, but the y-axis is going to be the tree color. And so the data points that you plot will be in that last column called tree color on your data table.